Hello everyone, my name is Linda Montes and I'm going to be speaking with you today about teaching English learners. Our outcomes will be to develop expertise in designing lessons for both your integrated and your designated English language development time. The fact is the Redwood City School District demographics have been changing. We now have 36 language groups represented in our district with more students arriving from all over the world each day. In fact, Henry Ford, John Gill, and Clifford have 7 language groups represented, and Roy Cloud now has 9 language groups represented in their students this year. We have developed a collective expertise in the Redwood City School District when working with language learners and promoting opportunities to become biliterate and bilingual. The fact is, our English Language Arts ELD frameworks call for both integrated and designated ELD. Our integrated ELD is English language development that is taught throughout the day across the disciplines. That includes our content in instruction with language arts, math, science, and social science. During that time, those content standards from math, science, social science, and English language arts are at the forefront of our instruction. What we're asking ourselves of what we can do to make the content accessible to our language learners. Then we have a different time of day, which is our designated English language development time, which is a protected time designated for the instruction of our English language learners. The fact is we use the content that builds into and from our content instruction. We use that time to develop critical language, and the fact is the English language development standards are at the forefront. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about what that means. But during that time, designated ELD, the question we're asking ourselves is what's the language our students need to effectively express the knowledge as they make meaning of new content? So we developed a framework to better understand and illustrate the basic components of a balanced literacy block. This was taken from the ELA, ELD frameworks. We know we have a block of time that's designated to teach foundational skills, and this includes the area of reading, where we have targeted reading instruction. We develop phonics, phonemic awareness, grammar, spelling, etc. We have a block for that. We also have a block of time, which is this integrated unit concepts and literacy development block, which is the time of the day when students are taking these foundational skills that we're teaching them and they're practicing them during a block of time when we're asking them to develop their content knowledge about science and social science, because at that time the students are using what they've learned during this foundational skills time to make meaning of the content that we are teaching so that they can effectively express their understanding of that content knowledge. And the fact is, we're developing language throughout that block. So during foundational skills time, you're developing language. During this literacy development time, we're developing language. And then definitely during English language development, we're developing language. In our district, that literacy development time is the time that we have designated and determined that we are teaching from these integrated standards-based units. So many of you we talked about this last year. We're taking an approach where we're teaching and learning language and content based around these units of study, and for our district that's science and social studies. The unit of study is the vehicle for which students develop reading, writing, comprehension, and language. So again, at the forefront at that time, we are really talking about the science and social science standards, but throughout, the whole purpose is for students to have something to read, write, and talk about. And definitely they're based on grade level standards to ensure that we are making connections for the students across the disciplines so that we promote that depth and complexity that comes from ensuring that we're meeting that students at their grade level with grade level content standards. So in our district we have developed, we have developed these content-based units. So here's an example of a second grade scope and sequence, I guess, and an alignment to the standards for these units of study. So for example, if you're teaching second grade in August, September, you taught families and ancestors. And on this document, it clearly shows and indicates which standards are addressed during that family and ancestors unit. And then pretty soon you're starting the geology unit. So again, we clearly outline the standards that will be taught during this geology unit. So for example, we're going to during this geology unit, ask and answer questions, state who, what, where, why, and how. Then we're describing how words and phrases look in their stories. In this geology, we're describing the oral structure of a story, etc. So this particular document, if you haven't seen it, is on BlendSpace, so you can find that, but it does tell you which units are more geared towards informational text and which units are more geared towards the reading literature text. So you can see these actually on BlendSpace if you wanted to look at that. So let's get back to our unit. And then we have a similar example for 3rd through 5th grade. If you haven't seen them, again, you can find them on BlendSpace, and if you'd like, you can stop this video so you can go ahead and find them. They should be at your grade level BlendSpace, and you can see this alignment. So actually, why don't you go ahead and take 5 minutes to do that. So go ahead and pause, and you can take 5 minutes to make sure you found this document, because it outlines exactly which standards are aligned to your units of study. Okay. So again, you can find them on BlendSpace. So here's an example. If you hit 1st grade, I'll go ahead and link it so just so you can see what that looks like. So all of you were emailed your BlendSpace links, but if you go to the 2nd tile, we try to align all of them so it looks the same. So if you go to your 2nd tile, if you want to look at a fuller screen, you open that up, and then you'll see the document that we're talking about and its alignment here. You have lots of other, this is setting the stage. In fact, I'm going to move to a different one. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to look at the 1st unit of study. So in the 1st unit of study, this happens for 1st grade, it was citizenship in the United States. 2nd unit of study is customs. The 3rd unit of study, economy. So in any of these units of study, you click on that link, you'll be able to see the standards to unit alignment. So here's an example, and if this happens, click on the eye, click on the link that appears, and it'll go directly to your page. You can blow that up a bit so you can see it. So exactly, this is the exact same document. So all of the units outlined for the year are here, and each of the units have aligned standards. Okay, so this is what we're using to that block of literacy where you do the integrated language arts and content units. So they're already outlined for you. If you're a SEAL school, you'll have actually a little bit more in that area. But it's going to go on to the next one. So what we just showed you was this the units that are outlined for this integrated unit concepts and literacy development block of time. More whole group lessons, we're looking at close reading, really focusing on comprehension. So again, it's the taking these foundational skills, and it's the application and practice of those foundational skills during this literacy development time. And that's to create that balanced approach of instruction so students can show us what they know. So they're using those foundational skills to develop their content knowledge as they're making meaning of the content that you're teaching, so they can effectively express their understanding of the content. And again, throughout the day, we're developing language. But our standards also tell us that we need to have a designated block of time for students to learn about how English works. That's essential for the students who are language learners. And during that designated ELD block, we look at these 3 modes of communications, or 3 ways of how we communicate. So there's an interpretive mode of communication that talks about how students make meaning of text or speech. So here students are interpreting the text or your speech or recording as you're using the content. And then the collaborative mode of communication, where students are practicing the modeled academic language as they negotiate meaning with peers or the teacher or in small groups. And then eventually we want them to produce, so in all lessons we have to have opportunities for students to actually produce and practice this on their own, so that students use their acquired language skills that you've just taught to effectively express their understanding of the knowledge. So in all of your lessons you have students have opportunities to interpret, to collaborate, and to produce language. And then those come straight from the ELD standard, so you've probably seen these before. So if not, you can go to the California Department of Ed, You'll find the new ELA, ELD standards, and here they are: collaborative mode, the interpretive mode, and the productive mode. And it tells you exactly collaborative when they exchange information, they interact with others, they're offering and supporting opinions, they're adapting language to the various contexts, to the audiences. And interpreting, the interpretive mode, they're listening, they're reading, they're evaluating, they're analyzing. So they're really interpreting the information you're giving. And then at the productive stage, they're expressing their information, composing literary and informational text, supporting their own opinion, selecting and applying, right? So here they're collaborating with their peers in small groups. Here they're listening to the information or reading it on their own to gain some understanding. And here they're practicing it on their own, they're producing it, okay? So again, during that designated EL block, you're working on these 3 modes of communication, but in addition, and more importantly during this block of time, the students really who are English learners need to be taught about how English works. That's that designated block of time. That's specific to them and their areas of need, depending on their CELT levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you're clearly teaching them, explicitly teaching them about how English works. So what does that mean, how English works? In this context, it means students use structures of text and effective text cohesion as they expand and enrich ideas. So exactly what does that mean? That in the standards, it means for structure and cohesive text that they're looking at text structure. They're looking at how the text can form thoughts so that's cohesive for them. They're expanding and enriching their ideas. This is through in print or articulating this, but through the use of verbs and verb groups